There you go.
Just wait for Shruti to rejoin before we start. Man, what a whirlwind of things to go wrong.
Indeed. Maybe just in the interest of time, maybe Andy, do you want to just go ahead?
Sure.
The topics today.
Yes. So the ultimate discussion on this is workload resource mapping is going to be taking a while from what we've concluded. How long do we want to wait before we just give a cutoff and say, okay, we're going to put out a patch release versus we're going to wait for this to land before we get a full release out?
Right. Is someone waiting for the bug fixes we have provided already? Are there teams actively waiting for this?
I believe so.
I believe there are, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't had a release since we went GA back in October, and so anything that's landed since then hasn't seen a release yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we have quite a few commits into the post-tree through the January.
Do we have a way to vote, or we do it on the meeting? Sort of like consensus on a specific decision.
And yeah, there are a lot of fixes, and I think there are few things I can see. There is one more question coming up from Thomas. That also is a bug fix that we could consider to be part of this release if possible.
Which bug fix?
Okay, I think he's going to come back to this.
I see. That's Thomas. Okay. Yeah.
My suggestion maybe is, David, let's take an action to kind of capture all the bug fixes that are going in, because that will help with the release notes process as well.
Right.
And then see if that's it, then we can make a decision at that point if we're good to go for a 101.
Okay. You mean with the current changes, or with the we can go through the issues and prioritize some more issues? And
yeah, I mean, we could take a look and see. I'm just talking about like existing ones that have already been resolved and anything that we need to include in our release, and then we can make a decision on any new ones that we want to include as well before the date.
Right. Right. But it's the same decision about whether we do 1.1, right? If the bug fix is going to take longer than our sprint, right? So we might as well just schedule the release for this sprint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then get it done.
I think what we need to do is we need to set a date. That's a hard cutoff. Anything that doesn't land by the end of that day won't be making whatever release. Yeah. If workload resource mapping lands by then it's the 1.1 release.
Then I agree.
Then we're doing a patch.
Yep.
I think the only open question at this point is when's that date?
Well, we have defined dates for sprints. So I think end of sprint. We'll schedule someone in the team to do the release. How long does it take to do a release?
About a week. At least that's what Project kind of indicated. I'll keep me honest here.
But it's a week working or is a week waiting? That's the difference between that, right?
It's kind of a stop and go process. I mean, yes, you're largely waiting on some things to go finish building like in CPAS. But there is some active work you need to do as well, like making release notes and coming up or making sure that there are a bunch of tasks you need to do to get it done. So part of it is just making sure that everything goes smoothly.
I think we are mixing the upstream and downstream releases together here, right? In this conversation.
Not necessarily. It's actually included in both. But let's do
no,
that.
The 1 week waiting. My question is, the 1 week waiting time, is it really required to make for upstream release?
I mean, they would be in concert, right? So My suggestion, David, is let's aim for the end of the
Or
sprint.
sprint? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then like maybe give it. I believe the end of the sprint is a Wednesday, so if we're able to get the, if we're able to, maybe you can aim it for a week after Wednesday, so that way we can just note that that would be a good cutoff date and enough time to do the release itself.
So, but why don't we schedule it to start the release Wednesday 16 then, so that we can then target if it's about a week, right? Then we know it's gonna be done by Wednesday the 23rd. So I don't have to have anyone working on release activities right next spring then.
Sounds good.
You know what I mean?
Yep, sounds good to me.
So why don't we say Wednesday? Let's say Tuesday 22nd is the release day, whatever it is. Like Andy said, I like that. And then that means we need to assign someone next week Tuesday, otherwise it's not gonna make it.
I think that was going to be me anyway, because Project had me go through productization and the release process before we left.
And is there a Jira for that already?
Yes, I believe it's currently just
then
filed as release 1.1.
Yeah. So let's do that. So Andy, you are assigned to that. Then the 15th, you need to start working on it, right? And then otherwise, it's not gonna make it by the 22nd.
Yeah. So anything that is landing into the master by 15th will be part of that release.
Exactly. Got it. Yep. That's like the freeze day, basically, right?
Okay.
Okay. I mean, only regressions after that. So if there's any regressions, then we'll fix it. But if there's no regressions, we'll move forward. And then if we do it like this, if we do it like time-based like this, I like it because it's what Andy says. Depending on what comes in, we make it a minor. We make it a. I mean, for major releases, we need to do some thinking, right? Because that's most of the time breaking changes, APIs changes, and things like that. But for minor and patch releases, I think we can make decisions on the fly like this. You know. Oh, there's no major features. This is a patch. There's a bunch of bugs that came in. We fixed them. Let's just do a patch release on this one. But then if we get on a cadence for that, let's say we could say once a month or once every 2 months or something like that. Then we know that sprint for that month. Then we know how to schedule it, right? And someone doing the release. How about that? I don't know. I wish we had a way to vote so people in the in the call.
I think it makes sense. Sri did raise a concern in the chat about docs needing 2 weeks. So maybe the one thing that we could do is just let's keep the dates for now. Let's take a look at what outstanding actions is needed, because I think a lot of this stuff has already been done, from what I understand regarding the docs perspective. But let's just check. We'll follow up offline and just make sure everything's okay for that date.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
That's about it, I think, on that one. So I think we can move on to the next topic.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got disconnected. So can we go ahead with Fanny's topic?
I wanted Steven to be there. Do you think, David, I should go ahead again for this for now, or?
Yeah. That's a good discussion. Yes.
All right. I think.
Just a second. David, I have a quick question. So if the release on 22nd, by next Monday, will I be getting the release note texts for the whatever is going for the release?
That's what Jasper and I are gonna. That's what Jasper was referring to, I think, right? So let's make sure that you have enough lead time. I think the only thing that we need by Monday will be the release notes, right?
Okay.
The problem with that is with the freeze. If you're saying you need 2 weeks in advance, then the freeze cannot be 1 week in advance.
So David, let's take this offline.
Let's take it offline. Yeah. So
thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I think I was going through how Managed Kafka is using SBO and how we can bind the applications with Managed Kafka. Like what I found
Penny, do you want
out,
to share something or is it okay?
I think I'll give the background first, and then maybe if required, I can share it. So like in doing that binding, I think we use RHOS CLI to do the binding. I mean, there are like two options for it. Either we use the OpenShift Web Console to do the binding, or we use the RHOS CLI to bind the application. I mean, we use the command given by them to bind the application. I think that would be the same for different managed services which might be using the service binding. Now, I can share my screen and show like what happens with that binding. Like when we use that command, it gives the it binds the application with the managed services, whichever services you want, or the backing applications. Now, out of the two options, like what I have come to an understanding is that they are going to deprecate or remove that support for the command from the RHOS CLI. So the only option left to use the service binding operator or to do the binding would be through the web console. And I do see problems in using the web console for service binding. It definitely doesn't give you the insights of whether the binding has worked properly or not, whether it's a success, whether it's not a success. There are no logs. What I mean, it just gives the information what it has binded. I mean, it has binded one application. The application name would be there, and the managed service where you have binded the application, and nothing other than that. So I believe if that is the case, and I do realize that is the case with every other managed service which we might have included or which might be using the service binding operator. I believe ODO is also giving one more command. I think ODO linked or something, if I'm not wrong. So like there are different commands the managed services gives to bind the application. Can something be done from SBO side that we can give them? I mean, relying on some other managed services to give this opportunity or background or the CLI for SBO to be used is, I mean, according to my understanding, it's going to be a difficult user experience.
Right.
Because
and it might be different experience, right? So some CLI decides to do it differently. The input is different. The errors that they get might be different, right? They might not even be tracking errors. So it depends. It will depend on the interface that's actually doing creating the service binding object to manage the user experience, as opposed to us having some way to drive the user experience by having consistent API, a consistent set of error codes, right, and things like that.
Stan, do you want? I mean, Kate, you want to say something? Yeah.
Yeah. What's the reason for them deprecating the binding command? Out of curiosity.
Actually, like it's an overhead for them. That's what I have come to an understanding. They gave this functionality because I think during the Reddit summit they had to like give this functionality to be used, and after that I think the support for that is becoming a bit of an overhead for them. So I think in the next release they are targeting that thing. I have found out like two gaps while using the managed Kafka service through the RHOS CLI. So like when I tried contacting them, I think one thing they are one gap they are going to fix it. The other thing which I came to know is this, because I think it becomes a bit of an overhead, and I do understand their perspective in this sense, definitely, because they should be supporting managed Kafka for this. I mean, it's not their responsibility to support like the other operator, which is not their services. Definitely an overhead.
So when the binding command in RHOS CLI is deprecated, they currently don't have a proposal for a CLI replacement or a
Right.
YAML based replacement, you have to do it through the UI.
Yeah.
Yep. That'll be the current state once they go out.
Okay.
And do they expect users to be using the console to be making these bindings going forward, or what are their expectations about how to do this?
Actually, I haven't discussed that much, but I mean, I'll have
Yeah.
to go through that discussion.
Okay.
But before going through the discussion with them, I thought like, let me confirm with the team if like, are we proposing anything else other than that, or what is it? Because from our side, I think I only see that we have web console. I mean, that web console only available from our side. Anything else we are doing, or I mean, what is it?
I think we need to enable a layer that we're missing. I think we're missing a layer, like an SDK, that could be used by many UIs, including IDEs, including CLIs, including other APIs. So I think we need to start thinking about that layer that actually creates the binding objects. Because the operator only honors binding objects. Once the binding object is the service binding object is there, then it takes them through a life cycle, right? That's what the operators do. They just talk API, Kubernetes API. But creating that object is actually the user experience. If we don't somehow control that, then we don't have a consistent user experience. So I think this is not going to be fixed in the call, but this is good call out, Fanny. I think we need to talk more about that SDK layer that we can provide.
I mean, anything. It should be, I believe, like for a user experience, if we want to make it easier, we want to make it user friendly,
right?
There should be something that even the other managed services or anything, whomsoever we want to integrate, they should be readily doing it. If they find
Yep.
it as an overhead,
It's
it
hard.
will be a problem for us
Yep.
to make it popular.
And having that SDK even like for ODO, that would be like huge help as well, because we are struggling with SBO support as well.
Yeah.
Because
So having an SDK where you can just pass in, hey, here's my service data, right? Here's the workload that needs to be connected to it. Please create a binding object. You know the spec, right? So SDK, you know the spec. Create a binding object for me, and everything works, right?
Yep.
So I think we're missing that layer. Well,
I think we do have a little bit like that, not fully SDK. We have the API, and they are actually using that API to do so. But
well,
it's
the API
right?
to do the binding. I think the API is to actually say bind. No. Okay, I see.
So they have SBO's API, Go API, I would say.
Okay.
To implement, they use that API to implement the bind command. I think that what problem is that API is not user friendly much.
Okay, so that's a good
and stable.
And stable, yeah.
I think that's putting it mildly, but yes.
Okay.
And there's also, the thing is that we started with this API before GA. So
internal.
Everybody has started to use, especially the ROS CLI guys start to use that as a dependency in their code. So the dependency is like, 0.90 or 8.0 or whatever. Right now we are at 1.0 and they are still using the old API. So and sometimes they try that. And the thing is that it wasn't ready for that purpose at that time.
Okay. But once you make it an SDK, then that means, then you can't break the API, right? So, and then it becomes, maybe it's a separate thing, right? So the operator versus the SDK is two separate things. They don't need to actually be compiled together, right? So.
Well, actually, they are not. I think that the operator itself also uses the API to do its operations, right? That is what.
Then we're talking about different things, I think.
Yeah.
Because the action that the operator takes, which is look at the service binding object and create a binding in the workload, right? That's an action. But I don't expect anyone else to do that action. The operator knows how to do that. I expect people to just create the binding objects and the contract. If I create this binding object, there's an operator there that's going to take care of this. I don't have to worry about it, right? So
I think there is actually what they're using the API just for the objects to create service binding objects, and then of course to make to send them and talk to them to the Kube API.
Okay.
The problem is that when you install SBO 101, version 1.0, and then you use the ROS operator, which uses the API 0.9, there is a mismatch there.
The object is different. Okay.
Well, in general, I don't say that it is in this particular case, but in general, it might be different because 0.9 was still tech preview, and lots of changes were expected to happen before GA, right? After GA, with the GA 1.0, we should be stable now. We should be careful to changing anything in the API and so on. So I'm just saying that we have something, and that something didn't go well with them, obviously, because they wouldn't be putting their hands off that right now. So we need to make sure to focus on that as well and make it more, make it an SDK, for example. But and anyway, we need to make it stable, easy to use, and
okay.
So on.
So it sounds like there's we're not starting from scratch. That's good. But I think yeah, okay. That's good discussion, Fanny. I think we're running out of time, so maybe let's give Thomas some time.
Yeah, so I just wanted to basically ask if there is any progress on the issue that I pasted there. Because on audio side, it's giving us a little bit trouble because we are using the Redis operator in our end-to-end tests.
Yeah, actually, we had some discussion about that issue, and we actually have discussions. We have multiple choice for the implementation. How do we need? So there are still few things need to be clarified. So one idea that we were thinking was to introduce some kind of attribute to make things as optional. Or I looked at that possibility, and then there was some other suggestion. Maybe we can make this kind of as soon as we see attribute that is not what we cannot evaluate, then we can ignore that. So that's another way to implement it. This we yet to reach a decision, which approach we should take. So once we make that decision, I think someone need to implement this one also. So I don't know, we haven't picked up this task yet to start working on, but David or
Are you blocked? The question: are you blocked on this, and what's the urgency?
Yes, not really blocked, but so we can work around that. But that workaround is not going to be cheap. It will take some time because we will have to basically update all our end-to-end tests that use this operator.
To what? To have an empty password or something like that?
To use different operator, or I don't know, maybe create a secret and use that secret name there.
Okay.
Means that it's
Why is it optional?
We should wait.
Why is it optional? Because in some use cases it's authenticated, in some use cases it's not authenticated. Why does that feel optional? I think that's the main thing that we didn't expect, right?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that operator that much, so I don't know.
Okay.
I think that I haven't checked it out, but I think that it creates it automatically, maybe, and then it's in the status field. But I don't know. That's just guessing.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was a legit concern. So, like you said, we should continue working on that. And I don't know if it's gonna make the 1.01, but it depends on the other discussion we were having. Okay.
So I would say that on our side, it might be better to start working on workaround than waiting for this. Right?
If you could start working on a workaround, yes. With given the workload that we have, we still don't know if we're gonna be able to do 1.1 with this one included. 1.01, right? So unfortunately, I have to drop. I don't know if you guys can stay a little longer. But you have something else? I need to drop.
No, I think we can discuss my topic in offline. It's okay. That's for the last time, I guess.
All right. Bye.
So we can end the call.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. All.
See you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.